War on Birds, Pull the Other One, written by Stephen Fry, QI. History, eh? Full of surprises. Wars for land, wars for gold, wars for... Well, you wouldn't believe this, emus. You heard right, emus. Those big flightless birds with feathers like Cousin It and a stare that could curdle milk. 1932, Western Australia. Buckle up, because what you're about to read is truly bizarre. Depression, dust bowls, and demanding emus. Picture this, the Great Depression. Farmers are struggling, crops are failing, and along come thousands of emus like a feathered plague gobbling up what's left. These weren't your average birds, mind you. These emus were bold, brazen, and very hungry. They trampled fences, scoffed down wheat, and generally made life miserable for the already beleaguered farmers. Something had to be done. The farmers appealed to the government. The Minister of Defense, a certain Sir George Pearce, listened with a sympathetic ear. A veteran of the Great War, he knew a thing or two about fighting. What he didn't know much about, it turned out, was emus. Lewis guns blazing round one to the emus. The solution? Military intervention, of course. The Australian army was dispatched, armed with Lewis guns and 1,000 rounds of ammunition. The mission: eradicate the emu menace. You'd think it would be a walkover, wouldn't you? A bunch of birds against trained soldiers with machine guns. Well, someone forgot to tell the emus. The first encounter was a comedy of errors. Emus scattered, seemingly impervious to bullets. They ran, they dodged, they even appeared to taunt the soldiers. The machine guns jammed, the soldiers tripped over themselves, and the emus, they just kept on coming. Feathered commandos. Emu tactics 101. You see, emus are surprisingly cunning. They can run like the wind, reaching speeds of up to 30 miles per hour. They can change direction on a dime, leaving their pursuers flat-footed. And those feathers, they act like bulletproof vests, deflecting all but the luckiest shots. It was like trying to herd cats. Only the cats were 6 feet tall, had feathers, and could probably disembowel you with a well-placed kick. The soldiers tried everything. They ambushed the emus, they chased them in trucks, they even resorted to shooting them from moving vehicles. Nothing worked. The emus were winning. And the newspapers? Well, they were having a field day. The Empire strikes back and misses again. Humiliated but determined, the army regrouped. They brought in heavier artillery. They revised their tactics. They even considered aerial bombardment. Thankfully, cooler heads prevailed. The second offensive was a slight improvement. For the emus, they were learning, you see, adapting to the soldiers' tactics, becoming bolder, more brazen. The soldiers, on the other hand, were becoming increasingly demoralized. Their quarry was proving elusive, their weapons ineffective, and the whole thing was starting to feel, well, ridiculous. Even Sir George Pearce had to admit defeat. The troops were withdrawn, the emus had won, and the legend of the Great Emu War was born. Emu War headlines from outrage to amusement. News of the war spread like wildfire. At first there was outrage. Taxpayer money wasted on a bunch of birds. Questions were asked in Parliament. Fingers were pointed, and Sir George Pearce found himself on the receiving end of some rather pointed questions. But then, something rather wonderful happened. People started laughing. The absurdity of it all, the sheer ridiculousness of a bunch of soldiers waging war on a flock of birds, proved too much to resist. The Great Emu War became a national joke, a cautionary tale of hubris and unintended consequences. Lessons from the feathered front. Humility, perhaps. So what did we learn from this feathered fiasco? That emus are not to be trifled with. That nature has a way of humbling even the mightiest army. Or perhaps, just perhaps, that sometimes it's best to just laugh at the absurdity of it all. The Great Emu War may not have been a shining moment in military history, but it certainly gave the world a good chuckle. And sometimes, that's just what we need. Emu War legacy, myth, legend, and a touch of embarrassment. The Great Emu War might be over, but its legend lives on. This peculiar chapter in history, where soldiers armed with machine guns faced off against flightless birds, continues to captivate imaginations. It's a tale told and retold, often embellished with each retelling, a testament to the enduring power of a good story, especially one involving inept soldiers and surprisingly cunning birds. The emus, with their speed and agility, outmaneuvered the military, turning what was supposed to be a straightforward operation into a comedic debacle. For Australians, it's a source of amusement, a reminder that even the most serious of nations can have a sense of humor about themselves. The Emu War has become a part of the national folklore, a story shared with a chuckle and a shake of the head. For the rest of the world, it's a curious anecdote, a bizarre footnote in the annals of history. It serves as a reminder that sometimes truth is stranger than fiction, and that even the best laid plans can go hilariously awry. And for the emus, well, they're probably still out there roaming the outback, chuckling to themselves about the time they took on the Australian army and won. Their victory has cemented their place in history, not just as birds, but as legends in their own right. The emu empire today, still going strong. These fascinating birds have continued to thrive in the wild, showcasing their resilience and adaptability. Don't worry, the emus weren't wiped out by any stretch. In fact, their population has remained robust, and they continue to roam freely across the Australian landscape. They're thriving, thank you very much. From the arid outback to lush fields, emus have adapted to a variety of environments, proving their incredible versatility. In fact, they're considered a pest in some areas. Their large numbers and voracious appetites can cause significant damage to crops and farmlands, making them a challenge for farmers. So, the next time you see an emu, take a moment to appreciate these remarkable creatures. They are a testament to nature's resilience and the enduring spirit of wildlife. They're survivors, they're cunning, and they have a victory against a modern military under their belt. The Great Emu War of 1932 is a legendary tale of their tenacity and cleverness. Not bad for a bird that can't even fly. Despite their flightlessness, emus have managed to carve out a niche for themselves in the animal kingdom. Just remember, if you ever encounter an emu in the wild, it's best to admire it from a distance. These birds can be unpredictable, and it's always safer to observe them from afar. They might not be at war with us anymore, but something tells me they haven't forgotten the Great Emu War. Their legacy lives on in the annals of history and in the hearts of those who know their story, and they certainly haven't lost their taste for victory. Emus continue to thrive and dominate their habitats, a true testament to their enduring spirit and remarkable adaptability. Could it happen again? The future of human-emu relations. So, could it happen again? Could we see another emu war in our lifetime? Well, stranger things have happened, but perhaps we've learned our lesson. The next time emus decide to go on a rampage, maybe we'll try a different approach. Diplomacy, perhaps. Or maybe we'll just leave them be. After all, they were here first. Whatever happens, one thing's for sure. The story of the Great Emu War will continue to amuse, bemuse, and remind us that sometimes the best laid plans of mice and men, and indeed soldiers armed with Lewis guns, often go awry. And the moral of the story is, the Great Emu War might not have had any profound geopolitical consequences, but it does offer some food for thought. It was a peculiar chapter in history where humans, armed with modern weaponry, found themselves outwitted by a flock of flightless birds. It reminds us that nature is a powerful force not to be underestimated. The emus, with their sheer numbers and resilience, showcased the unpredictable might of the natural world. It highlights the dangers of arrogance and the importance of humility. The farmers and soldiers learned that sometimes, no matter how advanced our tools, nature has its own plans. And perhaps most importantly, it reminds us that sometimes you just have to laugh at the absurdity of it all. The sight of soldiers chasing after emus with machine guns is a scene straight out of a comedy. Because in a world that often seems determined to make us frown, a good chuckle is a precious thing indeed. Laughter can be a powerful remedy, a way to cope with the challenges and absurdities life throws our way. So, the next time you're feeling stressed, overwhelmed by the weight of the world, just think of the Great Emu War. Think of the soldiers, their determination, and the emus, their unexpected victory. Remember those brave, if somewhat misguided soldiers and those cunning, victorious emus. Their story is a testament to the unpredictability of life and the importance of keeping a sense of humor. And remember that sometimes, laughter is the best weapon of all. It can disarm the most daunting challenges and bring people together in the most unexpected ways.